Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly workshop. Our weekly workshop takes place every Tuesday at 1 p.m. EST or 10 a.m. Pacific, where we cover a different topic each week. You can register for our weekly workshops or any other events through our website under the Events tab. You can also use the link displayed on the screen here. We do post a list of all of our topics in advance, so you have the option to sign up for multiple sessions at once. I encourage you to join as many sessions as possible as a refresher or to learn tips and tricks on how to make the most of Birdview for your project management needs. With each session, we will start with a demo on the topic that we are covering, and we will use the last 10 minutes to go over any questions that you may have. So please feel free to send in your questions in the Q&A chat box. Our topic today is customizing project rate cards and its utilization. So similar to resources and resources billing hourly rate, rate cards are hourly rates that are assigned to job roles. However, the main difference is that when you estimate an actual time is logged, the billable hours are calculated using the rate cards. So in this case, in this workshop, we're going to go and understand how the rate cards work, the different components of rate cards. So in this case, it'll be the versions, the effective date, and the default rates, and how rates are mapped to the roles or job roles, and how to add and modify job roles and users in a rate card. Then we're going to go through the questions, the last 10 minutes, and then we will quickly review the upcoming webinars in the future. So most of you know that Birdview offers a few different types of billing rates. So we have one that is like the internal resources rate. It is hourly. So one is the cost and the other one is the billing. Then we have rate cards. So rate cards, what it allows you to do is it allows you to preset billing rates for different resources and job roles if they are different from the resource hourly rate. It also helps you track different rates that are applied to a specific project, and it's mostly utilized if there are projects that are over the period of 12 months or more. So why is rate cards beneficial? Well, first of all, one of the benefits for rate cards is that it is role specific and not necessarily users. So even though you can add specific users to a rate card, it is really beneficial when the rates are applied at a role level because it allows you to manage the billing rate at a higher level. You can utilize rate cards if there's a shift in assignees or resources that are working on projects. So let's say, as an example, Mr. John, he is a project manager on a project, but he is moving on to a different role and is no longer going to be working on project A, and somebody else is taking over, right? So if you have a role assigned as a project manager versus John, it helps you manage, automate, and manage the rate cards instead of going in and updating users every single time. And as I mentioned before, if the billing rates change based on a project or a period, rate cards definitely come in handy for the same purposes. So we're going to go through a little demo today on how to use and customize rate cards. So I have created our little mock company here called Flamingo Engineering that has 3 phases. We have assigned 3 people to this particular project, and their details are as follows. So we have Ben, who is a supervisor. We have Fabian, who is a team lead on this project, and we have Dina, who is a collaborator. So now that we know that there are these 3 roles, supervisor, team lead, and collaborator, let's take a look at the rate cards. In order to access rate cards, we're going to click on your initials at the very bottom here and select company settings. Now, bear in mind, accessing rate cards are very specific and are permission driven. So either you have to be an administrator to access rate cards, or have the manage system settings in your permissions. So let's go into rate cards here. And as you can see, we have a few different rate cards, and creating the number of rate cards that you can create really depends. You are not limited to 1 or 2. You can have as many rate cards, whether it is generic ones that you want to use throughout all the projects, or you have specific project related rate cards. To add a rate card, simply click on add rate card and you can start filling out the information. Okay, so there are a few different components of rate cards here. So we have got the version history. So this is where anytime you create a new rate card or start adding roles and rates will be your current rate card. Anytime you add a new layer or new version, let's say a future version, it's going to show up in the list here. So let's go and take a look at Flamingo Engineering's rate card. So right now we have August 15th as the current rate card. The default rate is set to 100. And then you can also identify here the type of currency that you're using. So for the purposes of this demo, we have used $1, US dollar. So we have the effective date and default rate. And in the section below, this is where you can identify the different types of roles that you want within your system. So as mentioned before, we have a supervisor for Flamingo, we have a team lead, and we have a collaborator. So I've gone ahead and assigned different rates to them. So for a collaborator, let's put $50 an hour. Team lead is 100 and supervisor is $75 an hour. Now let's say that this project was a multi-year project, right? So we have 1 year, which is today, and then we have another year. So we're going to simply click on the plus icon to create a new version. Here I can click and say 16 and 2024. Let's say my default rate is changing as well. So let's say a 5% increase. So it's going to be 105. And in this case, let's just put $85 for the sake of it. And let's put it 125 and 65, right? So now you'll notice that you have a current, which is 7,550 for all these 3 roles. And then you have upcoming, which comes in effect as of August 16, 2024, same roles, however, different rates and a different default rate. So this is how you can manage and customize different rates on a going forward basis. As a project manager, you can predefine these rates at the beginning of the project or anytime before the date comes, before it's effective. So let's say you're not quite sure what next year's rates are going to look like. That's okay, because what you can do is you can always go into the rate card and you can change the date as to when you want this to be effective, right? So let's say, let's take this year as an example, and I want to say, you know, on the 16th, the rate changes to 85, 125, and 65, right? So I can update the date and the system will automatically calculate the billable labor accordingly. Now, this is one big difference between resource hourly rate and rate cards, because if, let's say, you go into a resource hourly rate, let's go here, let's say resources, and let's pick Fabian. So here in the rate history, you'll notice like different rates are applied on a different date, right? So if, let's say, I was to change their date, the system will take the hourly rate that's changed on a specific date. User hourly rate cannot be predated. It takes in effect, as on the day it has been changed. So that is one major difference why utilizing rate cards is very beneficial, because you can go and change the rates for a previous period, and the system will honor the new rate. So now that we have these rates, let's go and see how it is reflected on your activity centers, on your project's financial system. Okay, so for the sake of it, I'm going to cancel that and save, just so we can see the two versions. So let's go here and click on the $ to access the financial module. So notice each of the three roles have been assigned 2 hours at a different rate. So the total billable labor is 450. Great, that's fantastic. Now, what if something changes? So let's go back into the rate cards and say, you know what? I don't want collaborator in here, right? I'm not 100% sure what rate it's going to be, or let's just say these are the only 2 roles that have a specific rate. Anyone else that is assigned to the project uses the default rate, right? So this is where the default rate comes in handy. So let's go and save this. Now, if you go back into the project, the billable labor has increased. Now, why is that? It's because we have taken out collaborators. So anybody who's logging time against this project and falls under this rate card is now automatically assigned $100 billable rate. Because I've specified supervisor and team lead to have a very specific rate, only those individuals who have that job role will be that rate will be applied to. So let's say, as an example, you have a project and you have 5 different resources or roles. 2 of those resources have different rate, whereas the rest of the 3 members will be allocated the $100 an hour rate, right? So instead of creating 3 different or 5 different lines of the exact same information, you can simply say, just specify, only these 2 roles have specific rates. The other ones can be the default rate. Now let's take another example. I'm going to click on add a new role. And in this case, I'll add collaborator. And I'm not going to assign any $sign to it. A dollar value to it. So now we have supervisor, which is 75, team lead at 100, collaborator, I forget to specify the rate, right? And I'm going to click save. So notice how the billing labor changed to 350. Why did that do that? Because by default, the system is designed to take the values within the rate card, right? So because I have put collaborator in here, but have assigned a $0, or I have not assigned any value, but the system defaults it to 0, the system says, hey, any collaborator who's logging time against this project will now have $0 available, right? Their labor hours or billing rate is not going to be calculated. So that's what you're indicating. So it's very important, if you have a role or a resource assigned to a rate card, they must have a $sign, a dollar value. If there isn't one, make sure you delete them. Otherwise, the system is not going to calculate the billing labor correctly. You can add a specific user. So in this case, let's say Ben, and I'm going to say $80 because he is a supervisor. So anytime Ben logs time against this project, his rate is going to be calculated at $80. Any other supervisor who's logging time against this project is going to be at $75 an hour. So really, having job role gives you the flexibility that anybody, within the project, who's working on the project, they can log time and the system will recognize or try to relate, find connections to the rates that have been specified in the project rate card. Now let's create another version. So I'm going to bring this back to, let's delete that and add collaborator at $50. And now I want to create a new version. So I'm going to create a new version, and it is, it's in effect starting tomorrow, 16th. And I'm going to change this to $80, $110, and let's say $55. And let's bring this up to 105. Always make sure when you're when you're creating new records or updating a rate card, always save it. Otherwise, the system will not save any changes. So now that I've updated that, notice how the billable labor has changed to $480. Why? Because it recognizes that you have 2 hours at the supervisor rate, but team lead and collaborator, in this case, Fabian and Dina, have 4 hours. So now the system is saying, hey, use a second rate card that starts from this period. So it automatically applies the new rate when calculating the target billable rate. And it's also going to take the same, here we go. It's also going to take these rates when your users or resources are applying or logging time against the project. So this is a great way to automate and predefine billing rate for projects for all the users or roles. Now, let's say you don't want to have 50 different versions of rate cards, right? It's very easy to have a lot of rate cards. So what you can do is, if let's say you have a standard like billable format for specific roles that you're going to apply to all the projects no matter what, right? So that's your baseline. So you can have that as a baseline. You can create a job like a rate card that is applied to all your projects. Now, that being said, if let's say you have certain variations, that's where you can start making copies and duplicating or creating new rate cards specific to that. So let's say, as an example, this is my baseline, but there are minor tweaks to this rate card. I don't want to make any changes to this rate card, because anytime I make a change to this rate card, all the projects that uses this rate card will be modified, right? I don't want to risk it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this rate card. So in this case, it says Flamingo Engineering copy. We'll just leave it as that. We're not going to rename it just because for the sake of our reference. And here, maybe I'm going to add a business analyst, right? And this person is going to be charged at $120. So this is where I can make all the changes, preserving the authenticity and the validity of the projects that use Flamingo Engineering original copy of the rate card. And I'm just going to go and save that. The other thing is, if a rate card is in use, you cannot delete it. So in order to, if let's say you do decide to clean up some of these rate cards, you have to make sure that they're not being in use. So that could be for historical projects or anything like that. However, the moment you delete it, the historical data is going to delete as well. So it is ideal to really manage rate cards carefully. Yeah, so you can duplicate, edit, and delete from here. And you can also access rate cards through the project itself, right? So you don't have to continue to go back and forth between company settings and activity center. You can simply click on the details, financial, and here you can say open rate cards. So this is one way to customize your rate cards and manage, the versions, the default rates, the effective date, and job roles and users. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. I'd like to think that I did a really great job, that everybody is pretty comfortable with it then. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, our workshop today is complete. One thing I will share with you is our upcoming topics. So on August 22nd, we are going to review how Birdview integrates or plugs in with Outlook, the classic, the desktop version, as well as Office 365, and how it interacts between Birdview and Outlook. On August 29th, we are going to review Birdview's integrations with different third-party apps. So whether it's Jira integration and a couple other integrations that are up on the horizon, we will go review those as well. And if you have any questions, any suggestions, please feel free to share your thoughts and your suggestions with us, because that way it will really help me and our team to craft these workshops to make sure that you get the best of it. I want to thank you all for joining today's session. Again, I hope you found our topic insightful today. And yeah, you can send all the requests or any questions that you may have on our to our success email. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. See you next week. Bye.